the reasons because Jay Bilas is on that show. He's going to be a big part of it. Knows the game like no one else, and he's nice enough, always nice enough, to give us some of his time. Jay, it's Michael, Don, and Peter. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How you doing?
We're doing great. Now, so many people are curious about the Knicks. So there's certain different publications that we follow, and they all have different people. So I'm going to do this way, Jay. Knox, Sexton, Bridges, Porter, Young. If they're all available at the 9th pick, who would you take?
I would probably take Kevin Knox. I think he's the safest of the really good players. I think he's undervalued as a player. He's long-armed, and he's big, and he can really shoot it, and he can score. And I think he's going to continue to get better and better. Trae Young, if he's still there, is intriguing just because in today's game, I mean, he can shoot it from deep and such a great passer. He's slight of build and not a great defender. And I'm a big fan of Colin Sexton. I think Colin Sexton's going to be a really good NBA player. And I know the Knicks would prefer a guard and a point guard, but I would probably go with Knox at that spot, and I think he'll probably still be there. Some of the other guys will probably be gone. I think Trae Young will be gone. I think there's a good chance Colin Sexton will be gone. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could be there, and he may be undervalued as a guard as well because of his size and length and ability to guard people.
Now, Jay, I'm wondering, I read a quote by Calipari today, said that Knox is going to be the guy that in 2 years you'll say, why didn't I take him? He compared him to Jason Tatum, who wasn't considered a great defender, then got with a good coaching staff and was a great defender. Not great, but a really good defender with the Celtics. Do you see that in Knox, or is that just a coach trying to pump up his player?
It's maybe a little bit of both. I do see that in him. And I'll tell you, Michael, I was not a Kevin Knox fan early in the season. He looked a little sleepy to me. I didn't think he brought it all the time. But I flipped on that when I saw him play at West Virginia. I can't remember whether it was late January, early February, whatever it was. But he was, it must have been late January, but he was a monster. Kentucky should have been blown out in that game. And he had 34 and took over. And so, I don't want to say single-handedly, but basically it was single-handedly beat West Virginia at West Virginia. And that's why I said, man, this guy is way better than I gave him credit for. And the more you watch him on tape, the more you see his skill level, his size, all that stuff. He can pull up. He can put it on the deck. He catch and shoot, very smooth. He's got a sleepy look to him, but he does play hard, and I like him a lot. I think Calipari's right on this. I don't know that we'll look back. I mean, the Jason Tatum comparison is not unfair, but I'm not sure we'll look back and say that he was the Donovan Mitchell or the draft. But he's one of the sleepers in this thing. It's not getting enough credit. I know that.
How deep do the difference makers go, Jay?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. I think the further I get along in this draft process, kind of the less sure I am about things. When I first started doing this 16 years ago, boy, I had all the answers. And now you've been doing it longer, and you go, man, there's a lot more to this than maybe I gave it credit for back in the day. But, I think there's some really good value toward the end of the first round. I'll give you an example. I'm a really big fan of Aaron Holiday from UCLA. He may be little, but he's got long arms, and he's really good. And, he's projected in the 20s, and I have him up higher than that. I think he could be gone by 15, 16. I think he's that good. And there are some other players later on in the first round that have a lot of talent, and some guys even in the second round, like Javon Carter from West Virginia, who's going to play in the league for 10 years. That guy's relentless. And there are certain things he doesn't do well. But the one thing he does do is he gets right into you, and he guards you for every second he's on the floor. And relentless is hard to play against, and he's going to be hard to play against.
Is there a can't-miss star that you see there?
Yeah, I mean, I think DeAndre Ayton's can't miss. I think Luka Doncic is can't miss, and I think Marvin Bagley III is can't miss. I think some of the other guys, whether it's Jaren Jackson Jr. or Mo Bamba from Texas, I think those guys are going to be really good. But there's a chance that they're just okay offensively and they don't get a ton better. I think they will get a lot better. But Bamba's going to be a big-time shot blocker in the league as long as he stays healthy, and will impact the game on the defensive end. Some of the guards you could see going either way, not being a bust, but like Trae Young could go the other way. He might not be a great player in the league. That's certainly possible, but I think there's a lot of value in this draft. I think it's a really good draft. There are more big guys than I can remember, and I will be completely frank with you. I'm kind of assessing the way I look at this, saying, well, wait a minute, if we're sitting here saying the game has changed and we're going toward positionless basketball and shooting and all that other stuff, then should we be valuing big guys this way in this draft? Because I don't remember having this many big guys at the top of a draft like this. Like the first 6 picks are all big guys. If you want to call Doncic a big guy, he's more of maybe a wing, but he's 6'8". But outside of that, we're talking about all guys that are 6'11", 7 feet, and big guys. And but we're saying the game's going away from that. So shouldn't we be looking at some of these guards higher up? It's kind of an interesting question.
See, along those lines, Jay, because you bring up the analytics, right? I mean, you judge basketball players based on just basketball and what you've seen. But how much do the analytics play now in evaluating where you think a player is going to go?
So I look at the analytics a lot. I spend a lot of time on that, but I don't let it govern it. At least I try not to. And it's it's easy for me to say. This is not lost on me. I don't have a team, so I give my opinion on something. But nobody's stuck with my opinion. If I were drafting, if I were the GM of the Knicks or something, you're stuck with that forever. And so the analytics are not whether it's baseball, whatever. They're an important factor, but it's just one factor. You're not going to be ruled by the numbers. But I look at the analytics as much as anybody, and how guys do in certain situations, and sort of what their comparables are to people who've been successful in the league with their body type and athleticism and all that stuff. You look at that, but you don't let it rule the day on you. Got to be careful with that, or at least I try to be.
You like Wendell Carter Jr.? A lot of people have him going 5th or 6th. Where do you see him?
I have him rated 6th overall, and I think he's going to be a terrific NBA player. He reminds me a little bit of Al Horford when he came out of Florida. Not quite the same player, but big time rebounder, grabs everything with 2 hands. I don't think I've ever seen him grab a one-handed rebound. He can really run, so he can get up and down the floor. His conditioning's been an issue, but it got better throughout the course of the year. He's now much better condition than he was when he arrived in college, which makes sense. And he's got a very nice shooting touch. He makes his free throws. He's a better shooter than Marvin Bagley III. And I think he's going to continue to improve in that, where he'll be able to stretch it out and consistently hit an NBA 3. So I think he's legit. He blocks shots, rebounds, runs. I mean, he does everything you want in a big guy and can step away a little bit. So I think he's going to be a workhorse in the NBA for 10, 12 years.
Reading today a couple of stories that, Moe Wagner has impressed in workouts and that Golden State likes him. Do you think he could be a good pro?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think especially on a team like Golden State, because he can stretch you a little bit. He can shoot it. He's very skilled. Good, strong body. Good passer. Does not turn it over all that much. So he's an efficient player. Doesn't need the ball to play, so you don't have to run a play for him every time down. He's content being a role player, and even though he's not a big-time rebounder, he sticks his nose in there, and he does a good job boxing out. Like his guy doesn't get it, which is a factor. He's not like he's grabbing all these rebounds, but the one thing I know, like the guy he's boxing out didn't get it either, so there's some value to that too.
Which Bridges do you like better?
I like Mikal Bridges from Villanova a little bit better. Not a ton better, but a little bit better. He's a better shooter, I think, than Miles Bridges. He's not quite as explosive off the floor, but he's a little bit better of a defender, but I think a much better shooter. Miles Bridges, I think he's always left me wanting a little bit more out of him, including more free throws. But I think you'll see Mikal Bridges go first, and then Miles from Michigan State go 4 or 5 picks after him.
Jay, great stuff as always. The coverage starts tomorrow at 7 on ESPN. Should be a fun draft. We thank you as always for coming on.
Can't wait. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much. That's Jay Bilas, our very own.